Hi, everybody. I wanted to record this video to go over the syllabus to make sure that everyone's on the same page and that you understand exactly how you're going to be graded and assessed in this course. Everything I'm going to talk about is already in the syllabus. You can see the syllabus already posted on Canvas. I would suggest that you get the syllabus right now and have it available as I talk about each of these assessments, just so you can follow along. First off, my name is Dr. Steve Charman. My email address is charmans@fiu.edu. That's on the syllabus. You can contact me via Canvas as well, and I will respond. I tend to check my FIU email more often than my Canvas email, and so I might be quicker to get back to you at my FIU email. So I would recommend that you contact me that way if possible, but I will get back to you if you contact me via Canvas as well. Just might take a little bit longer. My office phone number is listed on the syllabus as well. I'm not always in my office. I'm in and out. Sometimes I work from home. Sometimes I'm doing other things. So I may not be able to answer if you call me. And that's why the best way to contact me is going to be through email. My office is DM 237. If you do want to meet with me, my office hours are Mondays from 2 to 4, or I can set up an appointment with you. Again, I'm not in every day, so we'd have to figure out a time that works for both of us, but that's fine with me. I'm not going to talk about every section of the syllabus, but there's a few key aspects that I do want to hit. When we talk about the course description, again, I'm not going to go over the whole paragraph, but I did want to mention a couple things from this. First off, when we talk about social psychology this semester, we're going to talk about it from a scientific perspective, meaning that when we come up with our ideas and our theories and these concepts we'll be learning, psychologists didn't just come up with them by philosophizing and thinking about them and then putting them onto paper, but rather we tested our ideas. And we published them in scientific journals. And we're going to talk at some length about some of the methodologies that social psychologists use to develop their theories and develop their ideas. But the point here is that it's the scientific study of human behavior, meaning that we're testing with experiments the theories that we do develop. Second aspect I want to stress about this course is that I want to emphasize critical thinking throughout the course. And the reason for this is because there are all sorts of people that make claims all the time about human behavior. If you look at the news, you often have pundits that are arguing with each other. Like, if we adopt this policy, how is that going to affect the way that people behave, for instance? And most of the time, these people don't necessarily know what they're talking about in terms of they're not basing their opinions necessarily on scientific data. They're often basing it on their own opinions and their political affiliations and their own beliefs. A lot of people don't even know that a field like social psychology exists in which we study scientifically human behavior. And so a lot of claims of human behavior that you will hear from people aren't necessarily based in any sort of science, and therefore you need to be critical when evaluating those claims. And so I hope that in this course, this will provide you with the tools necessary to evaluate those claims critically. Third aspect I want to stress is that social psychology is interesting, I think, in large part because it applies to your day-to-day life. I personally use my knowledge of social psychology all the time, in order to understand people's behavior, in order to interact with people in an efficient sort of way. And you can use social psychology in your own lives as well. And I want you to think about that as we go through the course, as you watch the lectures that I post in the course. I'm going to think about how these theories, these ideas, these concepts apply to your own life and your own experiences. You should have this experience a lot through this course, that you'll hear about some theory or some concept of human behavior, and you'll start to recognize that, like, wait a second, I sort of recognize that behavior. That's how my friend acted in this one case, or that's how my family acted, or that's how I acted in some situation. And you'll be able to understand the underlying reasons behind why people acted that way. So I really want you to consider how these ideas are applicable to your daily life, and I'll help you throughout the course to do that. But in order to do that, you're going to need to understand these concepts at a deeper, more abstract level. Meaning, on exams and things like that, I'm not going to ask you definitions of things. Anyone can memorize a definition. That doesn't mean that you understand the concept at a deeper level. And that's what I really want to stress throughout this class, is that you form a deeper understanding at an abstract conceptual level of the basic ideas and theories that we're going to be discussing in this class. One way to do this is, as I mentioned, to think about how these concepts apply to your life, or maybe instances where you recognize that some social psychological phenomenon was occurring. And I say this in part because you'll be able to use the material in your day-to-day life, but also at a more practical level, we have lots of research that shows that when people relate things to their own lives or relate things to themselves, they tend to remember it better. That's something known as the self-reference effect. We're actually going to talk about that probably next week in course in one of the video recorded lectures. Okay. So if for no other reason, you should be relating these ideas to your life because it'll help you remember the concepts better. You'll do better on exams, you'll do better on the course. If you skip ahead to student learning outcomes and objectives, there's four that I've listed here. I think the first two are less important than the last two. So the first two have to do with describing findings in social psychology, defining terms in social psychology, which I want you to be able to do, but I'm less interested in your ability to memorize a definition because, again, anyone can memorize a definition. It doesn't mean you understand it. What I'm much more interested in are the last two objectives listed here. So I want you to be able to explain social processes that underlie human behavior. Um, you should be able to explain these concepts to a friend or a family member that's never taken social psychology at a level that should make sense to them. And if you can do that, if you can teach these ideas to someone else, that's a good sign that you understand it as well. And secondly, I want you to be able to evaluate claims about human behavior from a critical scientific viewpoint. This is what I was getting at earlier when I said I wanted to foster critical thinking, right? You should be able to evaluate other people's claims of human behavior and assess whether they make sense within a social psychological framework. And I'll hopefully help you do that through the lectures that I will post. There are a number of expectations for the course. The one I just want to mention quickly now is that because it's an online course and obviously there's no class, the way that I'm going to be able to communicate with you generally is going to be via email. And so if I need to communicate with people, if let's say a deadline changes or I have instructions on how to, do some discussion post or something like that, I'm going to email the entire class with that. You need to be keeping up with those emails. I recommend checking your email at least twice a week, if not more often, just to make sure you don't miss anything from this class. Currently, all of the lecture notes that you will need for the entire semester are already posted on Canvas in the module section. Those lecture notes are mostly basically the slides that I will be using in my recorded lectures. And I wanted to give you them because I don't want you to waste your time copying down what's on the slides, right? So you have that sort of framework, that outline already. That being said, those lecture notes are not a substitute for watching those lectures. There's a lot of information I'm going to be giving in lecture that is not in those notes. Okay. And so you're going to be missing a lot of information if you only rely on those lecture notes. You need to watch the lectures, in other words, for this class. As far as readings are concerned, I decided to make the textbook optional instead of required in this class. So you do not need to buy a textbook. However, I might recommend it to a lot of people, especially if you're struggling with some of the material in class. And that's because the textbook can explain concepts in a different way and give you different examples, and it might explain it something in a way that is more intuitive to you, that makes more sense to you. As a consequence, people who are going to read the textbook as well as watch the lectures are going to tend to do better in the course than people who just watch the lectures. So I'm not going to ask you any questions on an exam directly from the textbook. They'll all be based on the lectures. So you don't need to buy it, but it does come recommended. The textbook, if you do want to buy it, is called Social Psychology by David Myers. Information on the textbook is found later in the syllabus. The 14th edition is the one that I recommend, but you can get the 12th edition or the 13th edition as well. That would be just fine. If you want to save a little bit of money and buy a used older edition on Amazon, for instance, you can do that as long as it's like the 12th edition or more recent. So let's talk a little bit about how I'm going to be grading you this semester. There's a number of ways I'm going to be doing this. First thing to note is that we are going to be taking quizzes on a weekly basis in this class, including this week. So what I mean is that on every Friday during the semester, except during spring break, every other Friday during the semester, you will have to take a quiz that's going to open at 8 a.m. on Friday. It's going to close at basically 11:59 p.m. at midnight on Friday. Okay. So you've got the entire day to take this quiz. This is just going to be a short 5, probably multiple choice quiz that just tests you on the material that we covered that week. Okay. You will have 5 minutes to complete this quiz once you start it. That gives you 1 minute per question, which should be plenty of time for you to complete the quiz. But just note that you only have 5 minutes to complete it. Just make a note of that. Okay. I recommend, obviously, that you keep up to date with the lectures as you go through the semester. It's not a great idea to save watching the lectures until Friday morning before the quiz because, there might be 2.5 hours of lectures, and you probably don't want to watch 2.5 hours of lectures on a Friday. So I'd recommend you trying to keep up to date with those lectures as we go through the semester. You cannot make up these quizzes. So if you fail to submit your quiz on time by midnight on Friday, you're going to get zero for that quiz. If you have a university approved reason for missing the quiz, so if you were sick all day on Friday, you had a death in the family, you had jury duty or something along those lines, then there might be something we can do so you're not penalized. But those instances should be pretty rare, and I expect most people to be able to complete most, if not all, of the quizzes during the semester. In any case, those quizzes aren't going to be tricky. I'm not designing them to be tricky. They're just meant as a way to assess whether you watch the recorded lectures, and whether you understand the material. That's the main reason that I want to do them. So there are 14 weeks throughout the semester, not including spring break. So you will take 14 quizzes on each of the 14 Fridays. They're 5 points each. 5 times 14 is 70. So there's 70 points in this course go towards quizzes. Second thing you're going to be doing is writing a series of discussion questions and responding to discussion questions. So on most weeks, and this first week is not included, so you don't need to do it for the first week of the semester. We're going to start this the second week of the semester. But on most weeks, what you're going to be doing is writing a discussion question. We're going to be using Harmonize, which is integrated into Canvas in order to do that. But you're going to write a discussion question that's due midnight on Friday of every week. That is a question related to the material that we covered in the recorded lectures that week. Okay. These questions are meant to stimulate conversation among your fellow students because other students are going to be responding to your questions and you're going to be responding to their questions. So I don't want to see lazy questions. I don't want to see something like, what did you think about this topic? That's a lazy question, right? That doesn't show me that you have paid attention to the lectures or that you understand any material. So I want you to put some thought behind these questions that you post, because again, they are meant to stimulate discussion among other people. So I gave you some examples in the syllabus of some types of questions that you might consider using. Now, obviously, don't use the exact questions I gave you in the syllabus. I need to see some original thought on your part. But something along those lines is what I'm looking for. We're only talking about 1 to 2 sentences for a discussion question. Okay. So if you do that, you get 2 points for writing that discussion question. On those weeks where you post discussion questions, again, due on the Friday at midnight, the following Monday by midnight, you are required to respond to at least 2 different discussion questions that other students had written. Okay. There is a minimum word count here, so you will have to write at least 150 words. So we're talking about a paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs at most. So this isn't a lot of work on your part, but I do want to see some evidence of some thoughtfulness in your responses as well. I don't want to just see your opinion. So for instance, if in the section when we talk about stereotyping and prejudice, I don't want you to just say something like, I think stereotyping and prejudice is bad. I mean, that's great, but that doesn't relate to social psychology in any way, right? So in these responses, I want you to refer to at least one concept, topic, theory, phenomenon that we discussed in that area. Okay. So I just want you to indicate to me that you know what you're talking about, that you have watched the lectures, that you understand these concepts at some level. If you respond to each one of these discussion questions, and you can pick which discussion questions you want to respond to, for each one you respond to, you get 2 points or up to 2 points, and you should be responding to 2 of these questions per week. Okay. So just to summarize, what this means is by every Friday, you need to post a discussion question for the class to look at. Let's do Friday at midnight. And you have to then respond to 2 other discussion questions that people have written by the following Monday at midnight. You get 2 points for the discussion question and 2 points for each of the responses you write. So that's 6 points per week that you can earn towards that part of the course. Now, keep in mind that I'm not making you write these discussion questions every single week. So first off, as I said, you don't have to write one this week. There's no discussion questions the first week of class. There will be no discussion questions in spring break. That leaves us with 13 other weeks of class. I'm only going to have you write a discussion question for 10 of those 13 weeks. Okay. So that means that you can miss writing a discussion question and miss responding to people's discussion questions 3 times throughout the semester, and you won't be penalized. So you can pick whichever ones you want to respond to, or if you want to skip a week or whatever, that's fine. As long as you, by the end of the semester, have written 10 discussion questions and responded to 20 discussion questions. Okay. But just make sure that those responses are thoughtful and meaningful. That's what I'm looking for evidence of. If I find that people are not writing thoughtful discussion questions or not writing thoughtful responses, I will send out an email to the class and I'll let you know why those questions, why those responses were inappropriate in general, and how you can improve upon them. But I want to see some evidence of thoughtfulness in these. There will also be 2 small assignments that I give throughout the semester. I don't have the exact dates that I'm going to be posting these, but what I will do is I will post them on Canvas. I will send out an email saying that they're posted, and they'll be due 1 week from that date. So you can submit them at any point. They're going to be submitted through Canvas. Okay. You can submit them at any point during that week, but make sure to submit them by the deadline, which will be clearly stated. If you don't submit it by the deadline, you're going to get 0 on that assignment. Just like if you don't take the quiz by the deadline, you're going to get 0 on the quiz. And assignments also cannot be made up because you have an entire week to complete that assignment. And with the exception of some extreme circumstances, death in the family or a long-term illness or something along those lines. Okay, but other than that, I'm not going to be accepting late assignments, so just make sure you get them turned in by that time. They're 2 assignments. They're each worth 10 points. That means 20 points of your final point total will come from assignments. And finally, there are going to be exams. There are 4 exams throughout the semester. These are not going to be multiple choice exams. They're not exams that you're going to take via honor lock or anything like that. What I'm going to do is post 5 exam questions. Okay. They're short answer responses that you're going to have to write for those. All of those questions are going to relate to material that we covered since the last exam. In other words, every exam is non-cumulative. You only need to know the material since the last exam. Okay. So I'll ask you 5 short answer questions that you have to respond to. Once you open up the exam, you're going to have an hour and a half to complete it. So I will give you about 5 days or so to complete the exam. You can take it any time during that 5 day period. But once you start it, you only have an hour and a half to finish it. These are effectively open book exams. You can use your textbook and your notes and the slides. You can use that if you want. But the questions I ask you are not going to be simple definition questions that you can just look up in your notes. They're going to be more application questions, questions that require you to understand the concepts in general. Okay. So what that means is if you don't watch the lecture notes and you don't, or the lecture videos and you don't study and you just open up the exam, you're not going to do well on those exams. You need to have watched the videos. You need to be understanding the concepts to do well on those exams. Okay. Um, I'll show you when we get to the course calendar in a few minutes when those exams are scheduled. And I hope it goes without saying that any use of AI in writing your responses, like if you copy and paste from ChatGPT a response to a question, not only are you going to get 0, but you're going to be reported to the Office of Student Conduct and Academic Integrity. Basically, as professors, we're effectively forced to do that if we think there has been some sort of cheating of some sort. And every semester, I have students that nonetheless try to copy AI and they get reported, and there's going to be sanctions involved if that happens. So just please don't cheat on these exams, right? Please just don't copy AI in your responses. If you miss exams, here's the protocol for what's going to happen. First off, if you know that for some reason you have to miss an exam in the future, let me know as soon as possible, and we can make some alternative arrangements. This should be very rare though, because the exams are going to be open for 5 days. So unless you have some excuse that covers the entirety of that 5 day period, there's not really an excuse for missing that exam, right? If you have, for instance, jury duty on a Friday, well, that might excuse you from Friday, but you had Monday to Friday to complete the exam. So you could have completed it Monday through Thursday without a problem, right? So there might be some situations where that require you to miss an exam. So if there's a sudden death in the family, if you are sick for the entire week, something along those lines. If that comes up, if that happens, let me know as soon as possible. So don't wait till the end of the semester and then email me and say, hey, I missed exam 1. 3 months ago. That's not going to work. So just let me know as soon as you can that you had to miss an exam, and then we can make some alternative arrangements. But that's only going to be the case if you have one of these valid reasons for missing an exam, which are listed in the syllabus, and if you have documentation to support that reason. So the vast majority of people should be taking all of the exams throughout the semester. There are two options for earning extra credit in this class. The first is one way that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, which is that you can participate in research that's conducted by various researchers in the psychology department here at FIU. You do that through SONA systems. If you're unfamiliar with SONA systems, the syllabus has a web address that you can go to. When you get to that web page, it'll give you instructions on how to create an account. Okay. All you need to do is create an account, and then you should be able to see a list of the studies that researchers are recruiting participants for. So all you need to do is find a study that looks interesting to you, sign up for that study. It'll tell you whether it's online or whether it's in person. If it's in person, where to go, when to be there. It'll give you all the instructions. Complete that study, and then the researchers will assign you points. Now, the general rule of thumb is that for every hour or less that a student spends in a study, they get 1 point. So if you participate in a study that lasts 45 minutes, then SONA is going to give you a point. I'm going to double that for the purposes of this class. So however many points you get in SONA, I'm going to double it for this class, up to a maximum of 10 points. So what that means is that if you get 5 points in SONA, I double it to 10, you're maxed out of your extra credit. Okay. So if you want to do extra credit, that's what you should be aiming for, is to get those 5 points in SONA that I then double. Make sure that you show up to your appointments if you do schedule studies in SONA, because if you don't and it's an unexcused absence, the researcher can dock you points, which you don't want to happen. If you have to miss a session you signed up for, let them know, let the researcher know ahead of time. Okay. The email address will be in SONA. You'll be able to contact them. So just make sure to let them know ahead of time. So that's one way that you can earn extra credit. The second way you can earn extra credit is by writing some short papers. I will post the topics of these papers later on in the semester on Canvas. For every paper you turn in, you can receive 3 points, or at least for the first paper, you can receive 3 points. The second paper, you receive 3 points. The third paper, you can receive 4 points. So that way, if you turn in 3 papers, you get 3 + 3 + 4. That's 10 points in the class. Again, that's the maximum amount of extra credit you can get. But keep in mind that you can only get 10 points total of extra credit. You cannot get 10 points via SONA and 10 points via papers. It's only 10 points total. You can mix and match though. If you want, you can turn in one paper for 3 points. You can do, 3 points of extra credit in SONA, which I double to 6, and then you get 3 points for the paper plus 6 points for the SONA. You get 9 points of extra credit. So you can mix and match, but the maximum total combined is 10 points of extra credit. So if you look at the grading scheme on the syllabus, what you can see is that you're graded in terms of the quizzes. There's 14 quizzes, one for every week, 5 points each. That's 70 points. You're going to write discussion questions and respond to discussion questions 10 weeks throughout the semester, 6 points each. That's 60 points. You got 2 assignments worth 10 points each and 4 exams. Those exams are going to be worth 25 points each. So it should be 5 questions. It might be 4, it might be 6. I'm going to try to keep it at 5, with each question worth 5 points. So that's 25 points per exam times 4 exams. That's 100 points total. So the entirety of the course is out of 250 points. Now, the way that grading works in this class is that a point is a point is a point, no matter where it comes from. Meaning 1 point on an exam is worth the exact same as 1 point on an assignment, which is worth the exact same as 1 point of quiz, whatever. It's all the same, right? So at the end of the semester, I'm just going to pool all your points together and I'm going to add them all up. And when I add your total number of points, you can see on the rubric on the next page, that's going to then be converted to a letter grade. So if, for instance, you get 210 points in the class, then according to this rubric, that's a B. That's what you would get in the class. So I know a lot of you need to get, let's say, a C to pass the class, right? So what that means is that you know right now that you need to get 175 points in the class to get at least a C. Doesn't matter how you get there. It can be there through any combination of exams, assignments, quizzes, discussion posts, etc. But you need to get 175 points to get that C. So you know that right from day one. There shouldn't be any surprise at the end of the semester when you get your grade. Now, note that I do not curve grades, and I do that for a couple of reasons. First off, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what curving grades means. But what it means is that um, I would be pre-specifying before the semester even starts exactly how many people get an A, a B, a C, a D, an F. So, for example, I might say that only 15% of the students can get an A. Well, that's not really fair to students because if 25% of you deserve an A, it's not really fair to only give it to 15%, right? So, what a lot of people may not realize is that curving grades oftentimes hurts students, and I don't want to hurt you, right? So, that's one reason I don't want to curve grades. Second reason is that if I curved grades, you would never know where you stood in the class because your grade would depend on how everyone else does. If everyone does really, really well, you get a lower grade than if everyone else does really, really poorly. And so you never really know where you stand in the course. Um, Doing it, grading the way that I do, you know exactly where you stand in the course. You know exactly how many points you have at any given moment, how many points you need to get a letter grade by the end of the semester. So I think it's a lot more transparent for that reason as well. There's some textbook information on the syllabus next. As I said, this is not a required textbook, it's just recommended. Um, the 14th edition is the one I recommend, although if you want to save some money, you can get the 12th or 13th edition as well. Okay, if you look at the course calendar next, um, this gives you an overview of which topics we'll be covering during which weeks. Okay, so you can see the weeks in the left-hand column. So for instance, this first week, January 6th to January 10th, we're going to be talking about, I'm going to introduce the course in my next video, and I'm going to talk about the importance of empiricism. Your job is to make sure to watch those lectures by the end of that week. I also have the chapter readings that are associated with each of those topics. These chapter readings are based on the 14th edition. So if you do buy an earlier version, the 12th edition, the 13th edition, send me an email and I'll send you the readings for those editions as well. The chapters are the same, but the page numbers differ a little bit. So I'll let you know if you have an older edition, what pages to read. Now you should be able to see on this course calendar that certain dates have an asterisk beside them. So for instance, you can see that the first asterisk is February 3rd to February 7th. What that means is when there's an asterisk, that means that an exam is due by the end of that week. Okay, so that first asterisk for February 3rd to February 7th, that means that exam one is due to me. You have to submit it to me via Canvas by Friday of that week. Now, that exam is going to cover only material since the last exam. As I said, these exams are non-cumulative. Okay. But it doesn't include the week that has an asterisk in it. So, for instance, exam one will cover everything from January 6th until January 31st. Okay. It doesn't cover anything from February 3rd to February 7th. It's just due. The exam's just due by the end of the 7th. Okay. You can see underneath the course calendar, I give you the exact dates that are going to be on every different exam. So it shouldn't come as any surprise what material is covered on any given exam. If anyone is in need of any accommodations because of a disability, make sure to go to the DRC and get that approved from them, and they will let me know that it's approved, and then you and we'd be able to work out some system. I'm hoping that that shouldn't be all that common because all the lecture notes are going to be posted online. All the videos are posted of the lectures. You have a week to complete assignments, a week to complete the exam, etc. But there might be some people who require double time for the exam, for instance. So if that's the case, if you have an approved reason for that, then go see the DRC and we'll organize something for you for that. And finally, I hope it goes without saying, but academic integrity is really important. Okay, what that means is that there is no cheating of any kind allowed, obviously. Now, that means that in your responses to exams or assignments, you cannot plagiarize people, you cannot copy off other students, you cannot use ChatGPT or AI, copy their responses and submit them as your own. You can't plagiarize textbooks, online sources, or me in my lectures. Everything should be in your own words. That is critically important. It also means that you are not allowed to take exams together with two people together, for instance. You are not allowed to talk on the phone about your responses until after the exams have been submitted. Those are all examples of cheating. Make sure that you do not cheat, obviously. As I said, if there are any instances where I suspect someone of cheating, then I have to report them. And because my hands are tied on this, I can't make any decisions on my own. I have to report it to the Office of Student Conduct. And I don't want to do that. So just don't cheat and you'll be fine. Okay, so I hope this clarifies the grading process for this class and how the course is going to work. Um, if you have any questions about the syllabus, first of all, take a look in the syllabus, make sure I didn't already answer it. But if you can't find an answer anywhere, send me an email. I'd be happy to get back to you on that. Okay. Good luck with the semester.